Hello, wives and future wives, also lovers. If you are in my Facebook group and you are watching this, welcome back to another Wife Side video. I am LeCo Hanson, a military marriage and wife coach, just out here trying to help bring the divorce rate DW in. And I wanted to come on here today and talk about 3 ways to recognize if your marriage or relationship is in an intimacy starvation phase. I think it's very important for us to talk about intimacy on this channel because intimacy is one of those taboo topics. Nobody wants to talk about intimacy. Nobody wants to be that marriage or relationship that is not intimate, right, with their spouse. And I think that if we are honest with ourselves, so many marriages are actually in this intimacy starvation phase. And I just want to give you all some tips on how to recognize if you are, and then what you could potentially do to help to get out of that intimacy starvation phase. So let's get right into it. Number 1, if you are currently in an intimacy starvation phase, you may be experiencing these things. Number 1 would be, has there been a prolonged disconnection between you and your spouse, right? And I talk about this a lot when I talk about going through the motions in marriages and stuff like that. It also creates a disconnect, right? And if that has been for a few weeks, a few months, few years, it's probably time for you to try to see, like, how can we get reconnected, okay? Because that's going to help with not only the physical intimacy, but the mental intimacy as well. Number 2 would be, when was the last time, or has there been affection in your marriage or relationship, and has it sparked anything, right? So when I think of affection, I think of kissing, the little slaps on the butt, or, just coming up and giving a hug. Is there spark behind it? Or is it even happening? Is affection even happening in your marriage? And then number 3, to recognize if your marriage or relationship is in a starvation phase, is, when was the last time, or can you remember the last time you were mentally intimate with your spouse and it stimulated a physical intimacy? It's very important for us to know that intimacy is just not the physical, right? It's more than that. It's also mental. And if you can be mentally intimate with your spouse, I think that it kind of leads to that physical and makes it better, right? Intimacy is one of those things that sets our relationship apart from any other relationship that we may foster, right? So whether it's, a friendship or a co-working relationship or being a sibling or a family member relationship, when you are intimate with your spouse, whether mentally or physically, it's different because you're not intimate with your friends, your co-worker, you know what I mean? So what I'm trying to say is, like, intimacy is very important in a marriage, in a relationship. And not everybody is practicing that physical intimacy, but mental intimacy is okay, right? So I just really want you to focus in on those 3 things. And if those are happening in your marriage or relationship, then you may be in that intimacy starvation phase if you're not stimulated mentally, if you aren't affectionate and there's no spark, or you're just not affectionate at all, or you have that disconnect, that prolonged disconnect, okay? So those are the ways to recognize if you are in an intimacy starvation phase. Now, moving on to things that you can kind of do to kind of help bring the intimacy both physically and mentally back would be, 1, recognize when this started. Recognize when there was no intimacy mentally or physically. Try to get to the bottom of that. And this is something that you want to do with your significant other, especially if you all still want to be together, right? And, like, why aren't we intimate? Like, why is this not happening for us? You need to come and recognize, when did this happen? Is it because some health issue? Is it because, transitions in life? Are there stressors that's in your life that kind of put this type of stuff to the back burner because you're really in, like, this, like, fight or flight moment, and you're like, we need to worry about this, and everything else is kind of like whatever, right? So you want to recognize When did this start and why did it start? Again, do this with your spouse. Number 2 is what can you do to change it, right? So if you recognize what it is, you get to the bottom of it. How can we change this? Because it's very important for you to have some type of intimacy with your significant other, right? Whether mental or physical, emotional, like it's very important, right? So what can we do to change it? Are we not having quality time together? Are we not going on date nights? Are we not doing anything fun? Are we not being spontaneous? Like, try to think of things that you all can do to change it. Again, what works for one marriage may not work for another marriage. So you really need to focus in on, like, what do we need to do to change this intimacy starvation phase, or to get out of this intimacy starvation phase. Number 2, or no, that was number 2. So number 3 would be have deeper conversations. Sorry, I had to glance at my notes really quick, but have deeper conversations. I always tell my clients, like, the surface level conversations are only going to go so far, right? So how was your day? You need to get like deep, like, let's get into some deep conversations. Like, what are some things that are bugging you? Like, is there anything that I am doing wrong? Like, sometimes I just did a post about self-accountability. Like, is there anything that I can do better as a spouse, whether the husband or the wife or whatever the case may be? Like, getting into those deep conversations. And if you don't really know what to talk about or how to go deep, they have so many things out there for you all, something that I'm actually creating and I'll have out here in the next couple of months. I'm super excited about it. But you can go and look at question cards, get question cards, and just have, like, sometimes they have those deep questions in there, and just go through them and say, this is a question that, we probably wouldn't have thought of, and sit down and have that quality time and have those deep conversations with your significant other. And if you get to the point where you're like, like, we recognized it, we're trying to change it, and, we're just kind of struggling to have those deeper conversations or whatever the case may be, then it's not wrong to reach out for advice or help or whatever the case may be, especially if it's somebody that you trust or somebody that you feel can actually help you. This is what I do. Like, I'm very passionate about marriages and keeping marriages together, especially if the people want to be there. But we have to be honest and say, every marriage is different, so they're going to require different type of things, right? So this is just my take on intimacy starvation. I think that it's very important for us to have these conversations and understand that you're not alone. There's other marriages that's out there that is facing these exact challenges, and the difference between you and them may be that they are actually seeking help and looking for ways to get out of this starvation phase, and you may just be like, we'll just ride it out. And sometimes riding it out can lead to something that you actually don't want. So again, my name is LeCo Hanson. I am a military marriage and wife coach, and I just help women in marriages out there try to stick together, work out their issues, and stick together and have hope for their marriage and their relationship. If you are interested in any of the services that I do, there is a link in the description box that you can click and see what programs I have available out there. And then if you have any questions or concerns, my email is also down there. You can definitely reach out, or you can, on any of my platforms, DM me. Until next time, wives, future wives, and also lovers, BYE.